Hello, everyone. We're going to go ahead and get started. We just wanted to welcome you guys to tonight's Mean Green Family Live, where we'll be talking about the adjustment to college. My name is Greeley Bauman, and I am the Graduate Assistant for Parent and Family Programs within the Office of Orientation and Transition Programs. Before we get started, I'm going to let our chat moderator and our guest speaker go ahead and introduce themselves.
I'll go first. My name is Fernanda Reyes, and I am the Parent Programs Coordinator. For tonight, I will be having my camera off, and I'll be moderating the chat. Just as a heads up, while Tracy presents, if y'all have any questions, feel free to throw those questions in the chat. I will be trying to answer the ones that I can, and the ones that I can't, I will be saving for the end for Tracy.
Hello, everybody. My name is Tracy Fryer. I use she, her pronouns, and I am the Assistant Director for Spirit and Traditions and Student Activities.
Thank you, guys. So our Mean Green Family Lives are here as a space for parents and families to understand more about campus resources and how they can support their Eagles, as well as an opportunity to get your questions answered about the topic at hand. So before we start, I'd just like to share that, like Fernanda said, we have a Q&A feature where you can enter your questions at any time during the presentation, and those will be answered throughout by her and at the end by our guest speaker, Tracy. So this webinar is a recorded session and will be available to view on our website, parents.unt.edu. So now I'll give the floor to Student Activities and our guest speaker, Tracy Fryer.
Okay, let me share my screen here. Perfect. I just want to make sure you can see the presentation right. Okay, great. Okay, so welcome. Again, my name is Tracy. I work in student activities, and I want to speak to you all tonight about student activities and way your students can get involved. So student activities, we oversee 4 main areas. Campus-wide events and traditions, which I'll go into more detail, services and programs for off-campus commuter, non-traditional and graduate students, spirit and traditions, which is what I oversee, and student organizations. So with our first area, campus-wide events, we hold very large traditional events on campus. Our first one of the year is Mean Green Fling, which would have happened during First Flight Week, right after new student convocation. It's one of our largest events of the year, where we have about 300 student organizations tabling. We have on-campus departments, and we have sponsors. We have a lot of activities, free things. Students really enjoy this event. We had some weather issues this year, so it didn't go exactly how we planned, but I think students still really enjoyed it. Founders Day, we just had on September the 10th, so hopefully some of your Eagles got to enjoy this event, but this is the celebration of UNT's birthday, which was founded on September 16th, 1890 by our president, Joshua Chilton. And so all of our events usually have a lot of activities and free food. And so we just had this event. But our next large event coming up is Homecoming Week, which is November 7th through the 13th. We have events every single day, and you can go to homecoming.unt.edu to learn more about those activities. We have a homecoming picnic. We have a student organization competition that different student organizations take part in. We have an event called Yell Like Hell, which is a skit dance competition, which is very popular. Yeah, we have a lot of activities. Again, like we have several activities in every day. So that's our next large programming coming up. In the spring, we hold University Day, which is very similar to Founders Day, but it marks when North Texas State College became North Texas State University. That's in April. Again, a lot of free food, activities, student organizations. Our president comes and speaks. And then Earth Fest is also in April near Earth Day, and our event is sustainable. We serve locally sourced vegan food, talk a lot about sustainability, and it's a really great event. And then another thing we do, it's kind of a niche activity, but something called Quiz Bowl that we usually do in the fall and spring semester, where students compete in a very competitive trivia competition, but it's very intellectual. Half the time I don't know any of the answers, and I'm amazed at what our students retain. Our off-campus student services, so these are our programs and services for these. So if you live off campus or you're commuting, you might live in a local apartment in Denton, or you might be commuting from home from DFW or something like that. We offer programs and services for those students. And then also our non-traditional students, which are typically, it's a very large classification of students, but basically if you didn't come right from high school directly to college, you're probably classified as a non-traditional student. So these might be our veterans, students that took a gap year, students that maybe had a family and then decided to come back to college. Maybe they're older adults that decided to come back for some more training, et cetera. So it's a very large student population, but we do several events here. We've had several of these events already. Open house, where we have a lot of our campus departments and partners come out, where students could kind of do like a one-stop shop and come talk to several entities. Professional picture day, so you could come and get your professional photo taken for your LinkedIn profile and other things that you might need a professional picture. We do these a couple times throughout the semester. Family Fun Night is our family programming. So if you have kids and you want to bring your kiddos out and watch a movie and do fun kid activities, we have programming for that. Non-trad and commuter weeks, so weeks long worth of programming. We do an apartment fair, so maybe you're living on campus now but you want to move to an apartment in the future. We invite all the local area apartments, and you can come out and kind of do a one-stop shop and talk to everyone. And then also barbecues for our non-trad and graduate students, since we serve those populations as well. This is the area that I oversee, Spirit and Traditions, which includes our North Texas cheerleaders, our North Texas dancers, Scrappy, our mascot, and the Talons. And the Talons are our Spirit and Traditions student organization here at UNT. They are responsible for building the homecoming bonfire, which happens on Friday night of homecoming week. They spend a week building it. It's a really amazing event. They also fire Boomer the Cannon at football games. So if you've attended a football game and heard the cannon fire, those are the students responsible for overseeing that. They also light McConnell Tower green when we have home wins for our sports. And so they drive the Model A car, which is called the Mean Green Machine. So it's an antique car that they're responsible for driving. So they're a very neat organization that get to do a lot of really, really cool things. So yeah, and then student organizations is like a huge area for us. UNT has over 450 student organizations. That's a lot to choose from. It can be a little overwhelming, but we have a lot of organizations to offer. So anything from religious or spiritual to a sport club or cultural international, like just a hobby. There's a lot to choose from. So you can also create your own organization, which is why we have so many students get together and they're like, oh, I really wish we had this kind of a club, and they start their own. So we welcome students to start their own organizations, but this is a really great way to get involved and meet other people. We also in our office have something called Campus Life Ambassadors. These are students that work in our office, and they help other students find ways to get involved. So it might be It might be a student organization or it might be a department. So if somebody really likes to volunteer, we might refer them to the Center for Leadership and Service because they have some really great volunteer activities. And so we just really want to help students get connected to their interests and just help them get involved. They also help us with some departmental support by doing presentations and trainings, helping work our events and corresponding with students and answering our phones. So you can go and get some what we call involvement advising. Maybe you're a little overwhelmed and you kind of don't really know where to start because there's so many things that you could join. It just is like, it's just so much. And so you can talk to a fellow student and kind of get some advice on some organizations or some activities that you might join. So our motto is like getting students involved. And so why should your student get involved? We really recommend that students get involved in maybe 2 organizations. There are obviously students that are involved in many more than that. But usually when you're a freshman, we kind of just recommend maybe 2, maybe 1 you look for related to your major, or something like academic that might be helpful to you in the future. So if I want to be a dentist, I might join the pre-dental society because that would be a great way to make connections and meet fellow students. And maybe the advisor is a faculty member that could help me find an internship or write me a really great recommendation in the future. But I also might be very interested in doing something for fun. So something that I do that's not related to academics, because there's going to be a lot of stuff that they have to do related to their classes, projects, papers, studying. So maybe I want to do something for fun. So I really like anime, so I'm going to join the anime club and do something like that. So this just gives them a really good opportunity to maybe better their leadership skills. Maybe they really like this organization and they decide to become an officer later, or the president or vice president, secretary, treasurer, something like that. They're going to really develop those leadership skills, network with other students, develop social skills, make friends. We want people to leave their residence hall room and not just stay there all day. We really want them to make friends, get connected, because we think that'll make them have a better experience. The research shows that if you get involved, your grades are usually better. That leads to increased graduation rates, and also it can really help with your resume in the end, especially if you're joining an organization that's related to your major. That can be really helpful. So this is kind of our contact information. So again, we're Student Activities. We are located in the Union 345. It's a little difficult to find, but we're off of the student organization area. If you can find the Student Government Association office, we're like right near there. This is our website. We have all of our programs and services and everything listed. So if you go to studentactivities.unt.edu, really can find a whole list of resources available. And then we are very active on social media. Everything is UNT activities, so that's easy to remember. And so anytime we have upcoming events and activities, we post those on social media. In fact, tonight we had an involvement fair where we had student organizations table. So you can go look at what student organizations we have, but this is a way in person to kind of go and meet those organizations and be like, oh, I was really interested in that. And I can see someone kind of face to face and kind of see if that organization is a good fit for me. So we post all of our activities on social media. So that's a great way to find out about us as well. And that is the end of my presentation. So I'm happy to answer questions or whatever happens next. Just let me know.
Thank you, Tracy. And before we get started into some of Greeley's prepared questions for you, I did just want to kind of add on to what you say and let the folks know that the reason why we're making this Mean Green Family Live is because we have had parents reach out to our parents at unt.edu email, just kind of stating that they're starting to notice that their student at this point in the semester are starting to express feelings of like nostalgia or homesickness. They may be contacting you a little bit more right now, maybe, wanting to go back to the life they had when they were at home. And I just wanted to let y'all know that that is completely normal and not uncommon, especially after having been home from COVID for a long time and being in this new environment. It is not uncommon at all for students to feel that way. And so the reason why we chose Tracy in UNT Student Activities is because this is often what helps student kind of get over that barrier or bump in the road where they feel not connected or lonely, maybe even sometimes, by getting involved and maybe joining in an organization and going to a meeting every week where you see these same students. You start to build connections and make friends, and it starts feeling a little bit more like home when you do have a friend group to meet at school or a place that you can hang out and study at that is your space. That is why we encourage students to get involved. And Tracy mentioned earlier that it is recommended that your student gets involved in at least two organizations or areas where one of them connects with their studies, their academics, and the other one connects with just their hobbies or personal interests. And so if your student starts to kind of tell you that they're feeling, nostalgic or homesick, or maybe they don't feel like they belong at this college campus, I would encourage you to encourage them to reach out to Student Activities. As you can see, Tracy is very approachable. We're not scary at all, and we are here to help your student. And students often forget that, or they just don't know. So encouraging them to reach out to either parents at unt.edu like you do, or just reaching to Tracy directly. And if we can pop that up before we leave, or actually no, we'll be recording this, so if you do want to see her contact information again, you can just watch this video. We'll be loading it up on YouTube and then again to our website. So that is my little personal take. I'll let you take it away, Greeley, with some questions.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Tracy, for all the great information you gave us and for giving us your time. You said you had a time to take a few questions. Perfect. Sure. So first question is, would you advise getting involved for the first semester for incoming freshmen or new transfer students, or waiting until a little later down the road, maybe second semester, second year, or something like that?
I think it depends on the student. We do usually recommend students get involved their first semester. So, earlier I said, like, maybe you think about two organizations. Some people, that might be too many. Like maybe they just want to look at one, or maybe they just want to kind of just maybe they just want to go to a game, or like a very chill event or something that they see. Maybe they don't want to be around thousands of people or something. They just want something really small. We have a lot of activities for that. So some students take to it really quickly and they join like 10 organizations, and that can maybe be a little much for your first semester. So anywhere between 1 and 2, I do highly recommend it. I know I'm much older now, but when I was in undergrad, I didn't know anyone here at all, and that's how I got involved. I got involved in my residence hall association, and that got me out of my room, and I remember that really changed the course of my life, and decided I wanted to work for universities. So I do think it's very beneficial to join an organization, but it's never too late. So if first semester, maybe your student is like, I don't know, maybe I just want to focus on school and kind of maybe do one thing at a time, and maybe spring semester I'll join an organization, that's perfectly fine as well. it's not too late, like you didn't miss the boat. If you didn't do a first semester, like, oh no, now you can't join an organization. It's not like that at all. So a lot of organizations you can kind of join at any time. Some you have to join at the beginning of the semester, but if you don't join an organization the fall semester, you definitely can join the spring semester or even the next year.
Awesome. Thank you so much. The next question is, with COVID, how safe is it for students to socialize?
I think that's a personal preference based on your student. I can only speak from my experience with the Talons, which is the student organization that I oversee. We have a very large room. There's plenty of space to spread out. A lot of students wear their masks, some don't. So I think it's a personal preference and what your student or, is comfortable doing, etc. I would never recommend somebody do something that they're personally uncomfortable with. So I would imagine other organizations are similar. I know that the Talons have made accommodations, like if somebody's not comfortable attending in person, like we can do things over Zoom. And so I'm imagining a lot of organizations are making similar accommodations for students to get involved. So it probably just depends on the organization and just your personal preference and your feeling on what you're personally comfortable with.
Awesome. So our next question is, someone says, my son is having trouble with time management. Is there a program that can help teach him better time management?
Oh, yes. I also remember this in undergrad very vividly. I wanted to do all the things all the time. And so I definitely identify with this. Yes, I don't know everything on campus, but I initially, like, several kind of ideas pop into my mind depending on what the time management issue is. The Learning Center has a lot of great opportunities. If somebody's struggling in a class or needs extra tutoring or just kind of isn't getting something, or the Writing Center has a lot of, I personally use the Writing Center a lot, especially like when I was in grad school, but counseling and testing. So maybe there are issues of just transitioning from high school to college, because it can be very different. And so sometimes it's just an adjustment period. You all might be able to jump into on some resources, but I think UNT is really great about having a lot of resources and a lot of access for students if they are struggling. So I think it's just finding what pieces they're struggling with and then connecting them to the appropriate resource.
And I'm not sure if you mentioned this, Tracy, sorry, I was looking at the questions, but just talking to the professor too, if they're having time management, like managing their time with their workload in class, just encouraging your student to reach out to that professor and just having them communicate this with them. They could potentially, get an extension for an assignment. Sometimes students don't know that is an option or that they can even ask. So sometimes whenever students are struggling to kind of manage their time, they will allow for more time for them to complete their work. But it's always good for them to get connected with their professors anyway. That way their professor knows that this is a struggle of theirs or something that they're struggling with at the moment, and they can help them by giving them more personalized guidance based on what they're assigning their students in class.
And I think along those same lines is ODA, the Office of Disability Access. If anybody needs more test time or quiet time or something like that, if like I know my niece suffers from ADHD pretty severely, and so she requires like, a quiet room and extra testing time. So that is also a resource that might be helpful to a lot of students that I think that they don't know that they could potentially talk to someone and get some more time for certain activities or assignments and tests.
Thank you guys both for sharing those. It's gonna be really helpful. So next question is, what kind of organizations are there for those who are more introverted versus extroverted?
Sure. I think the best way, so let me backtrack. Several things kind of went through my mind, is that with 450 student organizations, not everyone involved in an organization is an extrovert. There are definitely introverts in different organizations. Going to our website and going to the student organizations tab will take you to eventually the student organization portal, and you can go and search through all 450 organizations, and you're going to find a myriad of people that are involved personality wise in those organizations. So really just kind of depends on what you are looking for. So I would say that the professional, academic related organizations are going to be more focused on your academics and developing you professionally. So maybe that might be a better fit instead of being extroverted and just I don't know, hosting a lot of events or something like that. And so maybe a professional organization might be a better fit, or maybe like a cultural or religious spiritual organization.
I would also say anything that has to do with leadership development. Personally, I came into higher ed because when I was a college student, as a student who was first generation, I wasn't very extroverted myself, and I still would say that I'm pretty introverted and not really the type that was interested in like being in a big group of people. Doing the very out there, I guess, activities. So if they really want to, I think, better themselves and be around people who are also trying to, improve themselves and become a better version of themselves, joining some kind of leadership development group on campus. And there's always leadership student positions that are out there and available where they're actively working to help your student build their leadership abilities. I would say that's another really good one, because you don't necessarily have to be extroverted to be a leader or be like out there and loud. Like you can definitely be a little bit more reserved and to yourself and still be a really great leader and help make an impact on others. So if that's something that your student is interested in, I would encourage them to start by either reaching out to Tracy, because she's probably the best contact for this. But if they don't know where else to go or who to talk to, you could always contact, or your student could always contact us too at our parents@unt.edu email, and we'll just connect them with, the right person.
Awesome. So the next question is, this person says, my son is staying in the dorm and I find him coming home almost every day. What can I use to encourage him to stay or motivate him to make that decision on his own to stay on campus? He seems upset when being asked to stay on campus versus coming home.
Sure, it can be really hard to leave and transition into something totally new, and being at home is very safe and you know exactly what to expect, and so sometimes, yes, like leaving and going to a new place is like really difficult. I definitely understand that. Maybe what I would suggest is like the focus is like maybe a major, right? So like that academic focus, because not only will that be a way to meet people and hopefully like-minded people that are interested in the same kind of career path, but also it's going to help them professionally, making those networking connections, hopefully to other faculty, developing your resume. I mean, networking is I can't tell you the number of students that got connected to a really great job opportunity or an internship or whatever it might be, lead on a job even after they graduate because they were a part of whatever organization and they really got to know that faculty member. So maybe instead of like the focus being on like a social kind of club, because maybe that's just not really their thing, or maybe that's really scary to them, thinking about building up their resume for the future, and networking might be a way to kind of encourage them to get out of their comfort zone a little bit more. And there's a goal there, right? The goal is to get a job and graduate after college. So maybe developing your resume and making those connections could be a way to, I don't know, maybe that's the carrot. And then along the way, of course, you're going to meet other people in the organization and kind of make friends. I don't know. That's kind of my first initial thought.
Yeah, I think that's great. And just to kind of add on to that, I think in your question you mentioned like if you should force them. Personally, I think force is not the way, because even if you try, like it may not work, or if you do succeed in getting them to do something, they may not particularly enjoy it because now it's something that is forced rather than encouraged. And so I would recommend having a conversation with your student about maybe why it is that they're wanting to come home and not stay in college. Maybe that'll kind of bring up some reasonings as to why they're so insistent in going home, and then it'll give you an idea on maybe what they are struggling with, or why they're not wanting to go outside of the comfort zone, because like Tracy said, it is very important that at some point they do kind of get out of their shell. I mean, that is what college is for, and if anything, I would encourage them to just do one thing that is out of their comfort zone. Maybe they go to a meeting, or maybe they do something more like personalized, like go to the business or the career center at UNT, where they start to talk more about, yeah, their resumes, like Tracy mentioned, and how they can build that. That way they're not just going to class and going home, and they're really getting, you know, their money's worth for being at UNT. I don't know, what do you think, Tracy?
Yeah, no, I think that's a very great suggestion.
Perfect. Our next question says, where can my student find a complete list of organizations, clubs, sororities, etc.? Is there a centralized place they can look up to browse what might pique their interest?
Absolutely. So I'm going to drop this link in the chat. Maybe, or maybe I just send it to that person. So there is a centralized list of student organizations. It is called OrgSync. So our website, so you can get to it from our student activities website, but it's unt.campuslabs.com/engage/organizations. But again, if you go to our website, it's linked there. So in there, you can search through every organization. You can browse by category. You can search by keyword. And then when you find an organization that you want to look at, you can click on the organization, and then it'll give you information about that organization. So who their president is, like contact information, if they have a website, if they have social media, if there are any requirements to join. So some academic, professional, honorary organizations have some requirements, like you have to have a certain GPA or a certain number of credit hours, or you have to do an application. Some organizations don't have that. It's just, you know, certain ones have certain criteria. So you can go through and search through those and kind of learn more about the organization, and even send the president an email and things like that. So there is a centralized place where you can look at all the organizations that UNT has to offer. Awesome. Thank you for dropping that.
Perfect. Well, it looks like that is about all the questions that we got. If your question wasn't answered, or if you think of some moving forward, feel free to email student activities at what is the email for you guys, Tracy?
Yeah, student.activities@unt.edu.
Okay, perfect. Or you can email parent programs, where parents@unt.edu. But I just want to say thank you to all the parents and family members who joined us during this Mean Green Family Live. We'll be having another one next month in October, and more information will be sent out about that moving forward. I also want to remind everyone that Family Weekend is this weekend, starting tomorrow, the 17th, going through Sunday, the 19th. And if you have registered, then we're excited to see you guys there. If you haven't registered, you can still register in person starting at 4 p.m. at the UNT Coliseum. So excited to see you guys there. And again, if you have any questions, feel free to email us. But that's all we have for you guys. And thank you so much. Y'all have a good night.
Thank you, Tracy. You're amazing.
Thank you all. Have a good night.